Oh, yes. So I always like hearing that question. I mean, seeing the answers to that question. Um, we're tuning in. A lot of folks are tuning in from all over the world. I really, really love to see that. Wilkes-Barre, New Jersey, Philly, Seattle, Sweden, nice. San Antonio, Fayetteville, Virginia, DC, Charlotte. I love it. Pittsburgh. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, welcome. This is the Home Lab setup presentation. We're going to talk about how you can build an effective cybersecurity learning environment. We're going to cover this at a high level, and then, towards the end, we'll, go through the installs. I have a teach you, show you, involve you style to my training. So we're going to talk about it first, and then I'll show you what it looks like, and then I challenge you to kind of do it on your own or duplicate what you've seen me do. So it is going to be a little bit challenging, but it's going to be fun. I also want to thank my team for helping me put this together. A little bit about us and what we do. I mentioned that, we are the DC Cybersecurity Professionals meetup group. Because of COVID, we have to do a lot of our meetups virtually now, but that is okay because we still make that happen. I'm a big fan of actually meeting up, right? That's the point of the meetup. But we can still make some things happen. We've been around since 2012, so this is year 9 for us. We're over 8,000 members and growing, so feel free to spread the word. Um, we also are on almost all of the social media platforms. You can find me all over the place at Ty Wilson 21. You can find the company Cover6 Solutions at Cover6 Solutions everywhere. And then the meetup group only has one uh, handle on Twitter, which is at DC Cyber Warriors. But we also have a Facebook page. Um, we also have Discord. So if anyone wants to follow along on Discord, Alex will share the Discord URL with everyone. And we have a DC Cyber Warriors channel in there so we can talk about today's meetup or whatever questions or comments you may have. Right? The company name is a military tribute. I'm also an IPv6 enthusiast, so I figured eventually, when everyone starts to, I guess you can call it conform and embrace IPv6, then hopefully the Cover6 Solutions name will stand out. It essentially means, we have, we got your back. So if you look at the clock, 12 o'clock is forward, 6 o'clock is behind you. So we have the solutions to cover your back. Got to put out a quick disclosure as well as a disclaimer. You may see some links in here that are affiliate links. So I just want to put that out. I believe it's just going to be one to to receive $100 in DigitalOcean. I'll post that very soon. It's just a referral link in case you want to start to build servers in the cloud. But then I always put this disclaimer up to let you all know that, we're all here for a purpose. We all have the same journey to be successful. So just be wary of that in case you hear questions or comments from those in the audience. You're going to learn some things that can get you in trouble, right? We don't want that. We don't want anyone going to jail. Um, just be aware that as you start to install tools and such on your um, in your environment, then you technically, depending on what you install, you technically have exploitation software in your person. So depending on where you are in the world, the rules may be different for that. So if you are traveling or if you're, in another country, you may want to research what those rules are. If you're beginning your journey, right, a lot of it is going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I want you to get comfortable being uncomfortable because, I've learned some things in my career. And one of those things, and you may have noticed this as well, is that your brain, your subconscious likes it when you are comfortable. And when you try to move to a different zone, a different level of uncomfortability, that is actually you moving into the growth zone. But your brain is not uh, comfortable being there, right? So your subconscious is going to try to sabotage that to bring you back, right, to your level of comfort. But just try to push through that, because the more you push, the more you learn, the better you'll be. It will be a little bit challenging, but like I said, it'll be worth it. And again, only use these tools on an authorized network. If you are trying to build a lab, one of the best things to do, especially if you're not doing the lab in the cloud, is to just buy another router, right? Connect that router to the router the ISP gave you, or not. You don't even have to do that. But if you wanted to buy a router and you're not really concerned about internet connectivity, then you don't have to connect to your router that the ISP gave you. So where do we start with all of this, right? Of course, you want to start with what you already have. If you have a laptop, if you're here, if you're able to get to the internet, which you can right now, then you have, enough to start. Even if it means that your lab environment needs to be in the cloud, you can still make that happen, right? So we'll need to understand what your operating system is, whether you're running on Windows or Linux, or whether it's in a hypervisor, a type 1 hypervisor, type 2 hypervisor. We're going to talk about all of that. What I would suggest at a minimum is to have, a slightly up-to-date processor with at least 8 gigs of RAM and 40 gigs of hard drive space. I was using a MacBook Air on a pen test yesterday. It had 8 gigs of RAM. I was running a Kali Linux machine with, I think I allocated maybe 3 or 4 processors, and my memory was up to 4 gigs of memory. And then I had 50 gigs of hard drive space. I had zero issue running any of the commands that I needed for the pen test. Some of the technologies that we'll talk about is the networking, hardware, virtualization software, how to monitor your networks, IDS, IPS tools, vulnerability management. We'll talk about firewalls with tools like pfSense, but we'll just touch on them. Your SIEM tools and how to add additional virtual machines. You can have these technologies in one machine, or depending on your network, you can have a separate machine for each of these technologies. So you can have a VM that's running Splunk and doing nothing else, another VM that just runs Security Onion. Maybe your laptop will have your attack machine and your target machine. I have a couple of Mac minis that aren't doing anything, or that wasn't doing anything, so I just installed some of these tools on them. Right, so a couple of concepts that you'll need to understand is the difference between the bridged network and host-to-host. So if you go to your command prompt and you type in ipconfig or an ifconfig, then it's going to show you your available interfaces. And those interfaces are going to have IP addresses and subnet masks attached to them. And that information is going to be dependent on your DHCP server or the information that your router gives you. Now, in the lab, as you start to create additional virtual machines, it's going to ask what networking options you want. If you choose bridged mode, then that machine will logically just be another machine on the same network. And that machine will have access to the internet even though you installed it on your laptop as virtualization. If you choose the network address translation, that means that the new virtual machine that you created will be on a totally separate network, but in order, it will have access to the internet, but it will have to route through your laptop first. So essentially, when you choose NAT, it essentially turns your laptop into a router. And you can go into your virtualization settings and change all of that if you want. With the host to host option, you are adding a virtual machine to a network. It will most likely be a different uh, network with a different IP addressing scheme, and it will not have access to the internet. If you want to have multiple virtual machines in a host-to-host environment, then you will need to manually go in and change those IP addresses so they are on the same network. And we'll talk about some of the ways that you can do that, as well as some of the ways that you can use addressing to add security to your home environment. For the hardware, we talked about using laptops. There are multiple sites out there that will let you custom build desktops. So you can choose, what you want for processors, hard drive space, memory cards, um, you know, what do you call it? Not display, video cards, right? You can go and build that all custom. There's about 5 or 6 pieces of hardware. They only fit in one place in your chassis, so that would be really easy to build. I've seen this on Raspberry Pis as well, and then also built in the cloud. For anyone that's asking about the slides, these slides will be posted to the same URL that you used to register. Also, this video will be will be posted to the same website as well as to our YouTube channel. So definitely go look up Cover6 Solutions YouTube, like and subscribe. I'm getting used to saying that. Make sure you like and subscribe. And we also have a playlist there that has all of our old virtual meetups from last year. So if you've missed any, they're there. We've had some great speakers, and I'll be sure to mention that a little bit later. For your virtualization software, you have 2 types of hypervisors. You have a type 1 hypervisor, which is virtualization that's installed directly on your hardware device. And then you have a type 2 hypervisor, such as VirtualBox, VMware Workstation Player, VMware Fusion, Hyper-V, and that software is going to use some of the hard drive space and processing power of your hardware device. As I mentioned, you can also do this in the cloud as well. Any questions so far? If you have any questions at any time, please post them. I am a fan of questions, so I like to incorporate the questions inside of the talks. Right. So one of the questions is, having multiple devices. So there's a question: you have a MacBook for school, um, but you like to get it relatively inexpensive netbook for the home lab. I've run into people that use a machine for their personal use. They use a machine for work, and then they use another machine for a lab, and that can get kind of expensive. I have a MacBook Pro, maybe from 2000, maybe from 2014. So I've had it like at least 4 or 5 years. 16 gigs, but it was a quad core i7. So it's been holding up, no problem. I paid a lot of money for it though, maybe like 1800. But if you have the ability to invest, um, it can last, a long time. I would suggest that if you can put it on one machine, to do it. And the beauty of it is that you're learning how to secure your machine. You're learning how to, use, you can incorporate encryption techniques if you want, partitions, if you want to keep your work separate. You can incorporate things like YubiKeys, multi-factor authentication, so you don't have to worry about, the security aspects of everything. So we're talking about the network monitoring, right? You can't exploit or defend anything if you can't find it. So it's just like traveling, right? You always want to know where you are. You always want to know who's in the house with you. You always want to have an idea of who's in your neighborhood. And no, I'm not saying go scan your neighbors, but there are things that you can identify while you're trying to monitor and defend yourself. So I'm going to be careful when I say this, right? You can use tools that will um, identify your, so for your wireless, there are tools that you can use to identify your, in Kali Linux, I use a tool called Wi-Fi that will identify what your SSID is for your router and the authentication and security levels of your wireless network. If you're using a Mac, the Mac has some really good tools to help you identify that. But depending on, uh, the power of your antenna that you're using for that, you can also identify the surrounding SSIDs. Do not attack them, please. Don't get yourselves into jail. But that's where you can start. And then on your network, even when you travel, right? And this is just my opinion. I would say do not use Wireshark to, you know, to purposely, look at traffic like in a hotel or in the or in the airport. But what you can do is, you know, in Wireshark, you can put it in non-promiscuous mode to keep yourself safe. And with that, you're only seeing traffic to and from you. And that is a way to say that you are monitoring, your machine and communications to your machine. But chances are you'll pick up someone or something trying to connect or communicate with your device. What platforms would I suggest? In the cloud, we use DigitalOcean. So we have machines at HTTPS onion.cover6.training, HTTPS splunk.cover6.training, and those are hosted in our DigitalOcean environment. But I think you should also become familiar with other cloud environments like GCP, the Google Cloud Platform, as well as Microsoft Azure. And if you're unfamiliar with them, I'm pretty sure you can find a 5 to 10 minute tutorial about them on YouTube. And a lot of them are very low priced. And I believe um, AWS will give you the Kali Linux for free, I think. Someone should confirm that for me so I don't look bad. So there's a question about how do we segregate and secure your home network? So you like to separate IoT devices, lab devices, school and work devices. Cool. I will tell you what I do. And up front, it will take some work, but on the back end, it can save you a lot of time. What I do and what you can do is you can use your router's ability to route as a form of security. So I don't want to make this a networking class, but if you know you only have a total of 10 devices, right, at the most, then you won't need a /24. Maybe you can up it to make it a /25 or /26. So 25 is, the 24 is 250, 25 is 128, 26 is 64, 62, 27, 30, right? So you change your subnet mask in your router. Another thing that I do is I use the whole /24, which will give me 250 options. But what I do is for my home, I have a management range, which goes from whatever my IP space is, the last octet, 0 through 99 will be my management range. 101 through 199 will be my guest network, and 200 and above will be my lab machines. And there's a reason I do that. So 0 through 99, I will go and manually set an IP address for every network device that I own. My guest network starts at 101, and that's by design, because if I'm using Wireshark or any networking tool, if I see a 100 anything, then I know that there's someone on my network that shouldn't be there because I went in and hand jammed all of those management devices. And then if you start with 101, then whatever IP you're seeing, because of your DHCP lease, you will know how many guests are on your network. So if you see a 104, 105, 106, I have 6 machines that are on my network. For the 200 and above, what I do is I go into my router again. I have a MAC addressing scheme that I like to use for my virtual machines. And that's by design. And it's because if I see those MAC addresses anywhere in the logs or what have you, I know that it was me. So you can develop your own MAC address scheme. Mine is 06905651. Right, so it's 48 bits, that's 24 plus 8, so the first 32 bits are the same. So the last 4 numbers are the only things that change in that. 6, because I like the number 6, and then I will do a 200, 201, 202, 203, and then the IP address will correspond to the MAC address. So 06 9056516200 will have the IP address 10.0.6.200. And I go in and put all 56 of those IPs in and MAC addresses. So when I add a virtual machine, the only thing I have to do is go in the virtual machine settings, give it a MAC address, and when I give it a MAC address, I already know what IP address it's going to get. Boom. And that's how that works. Before you even think about, adding virtual machines, trying to learn how to hack, trying to learn how to defend, you need to get the basics down. And that's with the network monitoring with tools like Wireshark and the network enumeration with tools like Nmap, right? So like I said, you can't defend or attack if you don't know what's on it. So Nmap, Wireshark is where I suggest you start. Your intrusion detection and prevention systems, at the highest levels, these tools will be very, very expensive. Fortunately for us, we have Security Onion. I've done multiple presentations on Security Onion. That is your introduction to a SIEM tool, but it has an intrusion detection system. It has like a Wireshark, but on steroids capabilities. And it will separate all of your connections, all of your services, charts, um, and it will display everything that's going on your network for you. On the back end, it also has Snort. So if any of your activity triggers an alert, you can see that. The cool thing about that is you can go on the back end and you can go and configure those alert settings and learn how to create Snort signatures for free. You can import PCAP if you want. So you can literally scan your own network, capture that scan in Wireshark, save it, upload it to Security Onion, replay those PCAPs, and then see what the alert looks like. You are performing, the start to incident handling and incident response procedures. You can teach yourself to be a network analyst, a security analyst, a SOC analyst. One of the reasons why, I created those tutorials is because I always, always, always get this question during a lot of the meetings and mentorships that, people will say, I can't get experience because I don't have a job, and I can't get a job without experience. And I say, yes, you can. Check out Security Onion. You can teach yourself to be a SOC analyst for the free. Just got to be willing to put in the work. The vulnerability management, again, Nessus, you can use the first 16 devices, 16 IPs is free. You can use OpenVAS, and you can also use the Nmap scripting engine, to to identify vulnerabilities. Right? You always want to keep your software up to date as you progress in your career and learn about exploitations. You'll see that, especially on sites like exploit-db, you'll see that there's exploits created for specific versions of software. So if you don't want to spend, the 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes that it takes to update your machine, there's a high chance that exploits are created for them. Let me go through these questions. Can we use it on a Raspberry Pi? Yes. Yeah, so Kali has been free. You have to make sure the hash is recent and correct. Yes, so hash ID, the folks at Offensive Security, they provide a hash for you. You would also want to change your SSH keys as well. There may be instructions on how to do that at cover6solutions.com/read dash ahead. I have a 9-year-old Lenovo quad-core ThinkPad with 16 gigs of SSD. Never had a problem with several VMs or VirtualBox. True. So normally the way it works is you'll need 1 gig of memory per virtual machine. Normally, depending on what you're going to do with that. We all know what Patch Tuesday is, right? So the day after Patch Tuesday, there's an Exploit Wednesday where people create exploits for all of the patches that came out the day before. Firewalls, you can practice using IP tables if you're on a Linux machine. If you're on your Mac, go and look at those firewall settings. Go and research how to use syntax like netsh to view your firewall settings, to check the status of your firewall, turn the firewall on, turn the firewall off from the command line. I can assure you attackers are doing that, right? So a lot of the commands that you would use, at the command prompt, attackers and defenders are using them. So learn how to do that. Couple of popular SIEM tools that are out there. And what a SIEM tool is, your system information and event management tool. It's just a way to send nearly everything that you're doing on a network to one location. So your Nessus scans can be automated, provided you're paying for the pro version of Nessus. That's like 2,700 now. But there's a free version. But normally in a corporate environment, the vulnerability scans will be automated. The results of that scan will automatically be pushed to your SIEM tool. Firewall alerts will get pushed there. Active Directory, security events will get pushed there. Your NetFlow tool, which is like Wireshark, will get pushed there. And then that way you can have everything in one place. Splunk is free for the first 500 megs a day. So there's nothing stopping you from spending a minimal amount of money, installing an Ubuntu server in the cloud, putting Splunk on that machine, going to Splunk University. They have free courses there, and teaching yourself how to use Splunk. A lot of these devices and tools will provide you some free tutorials. Even something like web application testing. Burp Suite has tutorials and challenges for that. Eventually, you'll get to a point to where you want to add virtual machines. And, I have a suggested order for the virtual machines that are different than what you're seeing here. So this is me just saying what's available, and there's tons more, right? There's, sites that pop up all the time that allow you to create virtual machines. I mean, vulnerable virtual machines for practice. I suggest you learn how to create your own vulnerable virtual machine. So my suggested order is to first go to Microsoft. Was first to start at home with your own laptop. If you're using Windows, there is a Windows privilege escalation tutorial by Fuzzy Security. And in that tutorial, it is a series of commands that you type in at the command line that will provide you information about your machine. The purpose of that tutorial is to teach attackers how they can gain uh, additional privileges. So how to become an administrator. So it's a privilege escalation tutorial. But those commands can be used by attackers and defenders. So those are some commands that I would start with and get comfortable with. Then there's also NetSH commands. And then there's also tools like sysinternals, right? You should be comfortable with what you already have first. The same thing exists on the Linux side. There is a Linux privilege escalation tutorial by Got Milk. It's binary, so it's the G0TMI1K. And then for additional Linux practice, there is the Linux survival website that will teach you how to use Linux for free. Once you get comfortable using Windows and the Linux operating system, then if you're not using Windows, or if you want to install an additional virtual machine, the first one that I would start with, oh, thanks, Wilfredo. The first one that I would start with is this Windows 10 machine from Microsoft Edge. And I believe it lasts 90 days, right? I believe it lasts 90 days, but it's essentially a free Windows 10 machine. Add that to your environment, and then use that machine to do scanning. It's just another, more up-to-date machine that you can use, to install tools. For anyone that's going for the CEH, I would suggest go to the CEH exam objectives, go and get that list of tools, install all of those tools on your spare Windows machine, and then teach yourself how to use those tools, look at tutorials and such, and become proficient with that. Same for the Linux side, same for learning how to use GitHub, right? It's just some of the basics. And we've already explained that, it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, but you can do this. I have faith in you. Once you're comfortable with the Windows machine, I would suggest machine number 2 would be the Ubuntu desktop machine, and getting comfortable with that. From there is the Microsoft Windows Evaluation Center. And in the Evaluation Center, they will let you evaluate different versions of Windows Server software. In there, I believe it lasts 180 days, so 6 months. But once you install the Windows Server, now you can learn about server roles. I highly suggest looking for Eli, the computer guy, on YouTube, and learn how to install Active Directory, DHCP, IIS, security policies, right? The Windows machine that you just had. Once you create an Active Directory domain, then you add that Windows machine to the domain. You can learn how to do that, learn how to create different domains, different accounts, different groups, play with, things like domain admins, power users, groups for remote access, security policies, right? You should be comfortable doing all of that before you think about hacking. People think hacking is just all glory and glorious. Um, but sometimes it's just really straightforward. Forward. You identify a vulnerability, you find an exploit that matches that vulnerability. Maybe you may have to make some changes to the exploit, but that's essentially how it works. And the more expertise you have in being able to modify those exploits, the better off you'll be. But if you wanted to get into the hacking, Kali Linux or Parrot OS, right, would be the go-to for that. And then adding um, purposely vulnerable machines like Metasploitable 2, Metasploitable 3, the OWASP Security Shepherd for your web application testing, the damn vulnerable web app. They do a really good job of making those web applications in the form of tutorials, and it's fun as well. So it's like a mini capture the flag environment with scoring and everything. The Metasploitable 2 machine does have Matilde on the back end of that. So there is a web application that will teach you about the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. And we need to be familiar with the OWASP top 10 as well. And then, of course, on VulnHub, they're always releasing virtual machines, vulnerable virtual machines there. So either as an individual or as a group, whatever the next vulnerable machine is, pull that down and start attacking it as a group and then learn. Eventually, you're going to get advanced and you'll start studying for offensive certifications like the EJPT or the CEH Practical or even the OSCP. TJ Null at TJ_Null has a list of vulnerable machines from VulnHub as well as Hack the Box that will help prepare you for the OSCP exam. One of my favorite people, Rana Khalil, has a bunch of write-ups where she explains step by step how to enumerate these VulnHub and attack and Hack the Box machines, what the results of the enumeration was, what the thought process was to take it to the next step. So definitely go and find Rana Khalil on Medium, RANAKHALIL. I hope I did not butcher that. If I did, Rana, I'm sorry. But then in the video form, one of my favorite people, IPSEC, so IPPSEC. Go find IPSEC on YouTube. IPSEC does a really, 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 really great job of explaining how he exploited machines. And then there's lists, easy, medium, hard, I think it's extreme on YouTube. So you can just watch the easy windows, medium windows until you get better. Hey, it's the same list for the Linux side, but then he also has a site called ipsec.rocks. And on there, he tied a searchable website to his YouTube videos. So you go to ipsec.rocks, you put in a search term, and it will pull up the location of the YouTube video to where he explains how he exploited that piece of technology. So you can just watch IPSEC videos and become a star. Alex, thanks for following with the links. Yeah. And then for there's extra practice and challenges. Brad Duncan and the team on malware traffic analysis. Sample PCAP files, sample challenges, their, a question and answer series on how to answer those PCAP questions. Like the amount of um, available resources are just crazy right now. Everything that you have at your disposal. Try Hack Me. There's a lot of rooms on Try Hack Me that are free. Um, there's a lot of, series of rooms that are created in tasks, like Advent, created by who was on that team? Um, Tiberius or Tibsec, Nahamsec, I believe the Cyber Mentor contributed to that, but it's called the Advent. And for $10 a month, you can get VIP access and join different rooms. And in Try Hack Me, a lot of those rooms are like a capture the flag environment. So you can get used to what a capture the flag environment would look like. And oftentimes there's hints and, step by step, like, I don't want to say step by step instructions, but the purpose of those rooms are for you to learn, right? They're not there to kill you and prove you don't know anything. Like, they're there to help you learn. What else was a good one? KringoCon by Sands, or the Sands Holiday Hack Challenge. All right, go through all of those. I mentioned VulnHub, we mentioned Hack the Box, Packet Total for some sample PCAPs. And just some quick points that I want to go over, before we close out and do the maybe one or two video tutorials, provided we have time, is I want you to think about, if you've never done any of this, think about how you felt when you had to do the research, to identify what a tool is, what it does, why it's important, how you can use it, how you can break it, right? Think about how that felt. Like if it was just way too much for you, you weren't moved, or you weren't, um, you didn't really feel anything about it, and you just felt discouraged the whole time, I would say try to push through that. And it can be fun. I would say, look for easy wins, right? Just an easy tutorial, get that started, before you move into more of the complex situations. Then, if you can get familiar with, most, if not all of the things that we talked about, you're going to end up crushing these interviews. I can assure you that if you tell me that, you're preparing for the OSCP, if you tell me that, you are analyzing TrickBot PCAP on the side for fun, I'm going to be really impressed by that. Chances are you're going to get the job, right? The other thing is, I always run into folks that, that find it difficult, to get in or to break into the industry. And an analogy I like to use, maybe you can understand it, and I know my friends back home will understand it. It's kind of like going to someone else's neighborhood basketball court and expecting someone to pick you on their basketball team, right? Like, I want to run. Can I get next? People are going to be like, who are you? What do you do? Right? Can you even shoot? Can you dribble? Can you play defense? Right? So that's why, that initial shoot around is important, right? Maybe you want to kind of display that you got moves. And to me, the industry is the same way. If you don't have someone that's bringing you to that court that's going to vouch for you, right? It's going to be difficult. But there are ways to show that you have skills, either in the form of blog posts, video posts, um, speaking at a conference, right? You don't have to do it alone. We're here to help you, right? You can do it as a group, maybe you and a friend, start a podcast. All of these things are pretty much free to do. And those are things that you can add to your resume. Um, your LinkedIn profile, right? Your LinkedIn has an option to save your LinkedIn profile as a resume. Having social media accounts helps. Having a Twitter is where it's at right now. In Twitter, certain hashtags, certain people, you can create lists, right? You can do this, right? But back to this. You can speak to the things that you have experience doing now, like looking at offensive and defensive tools, right? The setup and configuration is just something that you do all the time. I'm a fan of you having issues with your setup because that's how you learn. Analyzing not malware, but analyzing PCAPs. If you want to get in something like uh, Cuckoo or Ghidra or the malware analyst, the malware analyst notebook, you can start learning how to analyze malware, right? You now are doing incident handling and response procedures and some threat hunting. So those are all some things that you can talk about once you have these labs. Embrace that, right? You will need to suffer a little bit in order to get better. We talked about that, but you can do this. I believe in you. You do belong here in this industry. You can be whoever you want to be. My brother, who I'm visiting now, played in the NFL. There is what 0.5% of the population, maybe even less, that have made it to the NFL. The attendees here, I don't know you, but statistically speaking, I'm sure that you won't be playing in the NFL anytime soon. But you can be a CTO, you can be a CISO, you can be a CEO, you can be a network admin, senior security engineer, app developer, DevOps, secure DevOps, code review, audit, CMMC. You want to vet people for staffing and recruiting, you can do that, right? You can do anything. I and Cover6 Solutions, the team will always be here to help you. Um, and, let's see, pending any questions, that's about all we have. So what we're going to start doing, we're out of time, but what we're going to start doing is we're going to start, now that we've, so teach you, show you, involve you, now that we have talked about it, we're going to start adding the step-by-step tutorials. And sorry we ran out of time, but we're going to start adding the step-by-step tutorials to our home lab setup playlist. So be on the lookout for that. If there's anything that you're stuck on, I'm sure there's a tutorial out there about it, but we will have an official list that we put in, and then we'll also start including challenges for that. So teach you, show you, involve you. Ooh, sorry if I'm coughing a little bit. Any questions so far? Okay, so like I said, this video will be posted to the same URL. We will start posting the step-by-step explanations and videos there as well as some helpful challenges for you. A question about promiscuous mode. Oftentimes with Wireshark, you will need to be an administrator, or VMs, most of these tools, you will need to be an administrator to monitor the network. So when you turn on Wireshark, you'll get a little pop-up that says you need to be an administrator or something. But you asked about promiscuous mode and non-promiscuous mode. So in Wireshark, in promiscuous mode, that means that you can see not only your traffic, but all of the other traffic from the other devices that are on the network. In non-promiscuous mode, it means that you can only see the traffic that was created by your device, or information that's to or from your device. Typically in a corporate environment, you'll be attached to a switch. A switch separates broadcast domains. So typically if you run Wireshark at your organization, make sure that you're allowed to, you will only see traffic to and from you. Yeah, so thanks for the kind words, Reggie. It's good to see names of, familiar names that I know. So once again, I asked earlier, where in the world are you all tuning in from? Daryl, good to see you. Don, good to see you. Good to see the name. Who else? Javier, I know that name. What's up? Mike Jones. Othello. Eeyore. Oh man. Yeah, Wilfredo, good to see you. Oh man, so many names. Antoinette, Areve, Brandon, Charles, Chris, Christina, Daniel, Daryl, Dave, Donald, Douglas, Leticia. Hope I got that right. Erica, Giovanni, Guillermo, James, Janice, Javier. So many people. Thank you for attending. Oh, okay. Maryland, Atlanta, Langley Air Force Base, Baltimore, Indianapolis, Illinois, Central Texas, Tyson's Corner. Yeah, I remember Javier. Cleveland. Okay, yeah. So just signing off. You can follow us on the various social media platforms. If you want to mention anything about the meetup, we are at DC Cyber Warriors, or the hashtag DC Meetup. There'll be a follow-up email sent out to everyone. I want to thank you all for the support. We will always be here to help you. If you need anything, just let us know. We'll be in the Discord all the time. And I wish you all nothing but happiness and success. All right. So with that, have a good day, everyone.